So before we get into this, I want to show you guys this morning, 7:45, this is the picture that I took of the indoor and outdoor temperature and humidity here in my shop. And then this was me sitting down right now at 11 o'clock just before filming this video. Now, I'll let you guys pause the video and do the math and do all the stuff, but regardless of whatever the numbers say, it is a huge difference in this shop right now. What's going on, guys? I'm Jody. This is Inspire Woodcraft. Today, I wanted to show you guys kind of the steps I took to sort of seal up my shop. This has been a long time coming. I've got foam panels in the garage door to try and insulate that. I also had a really annoying gap up above here that I'll show you guys here in a second that I finally covered up, capped off to keep hot air from coming down here. And then I also put some trim on the outside. Now, all this stuff that I used is stuff that I got at the Home Depot, so it's not very expensive. In fact, expense was something I was trying to keep obviously as low as possible. And I also brought a portable AC into the shop. Now, I've actually had this thing for a while and I haven't run it because it's just been so bad in here as far as the air coming through here, the hot air coming down and everything. So I wanted to see how well this portable AC unit would actually work. Now, this garage door is just like any other basic garage door. It's totally uninsulated steel or metal door. I don't know what it's made out of. And then around the top and sides, you guys can see this light leakage that comes through here. This is all from the air gaps from the outside driveway air seeping up inside. And then of course I have this giant gap in the ceiling about 5 feet from what I guess is the front of the garage back to here, which lets all that hot attic air just dump right down here into this part of the shop. Now you can actually walk in the man door and notice a definite difference between coming back here to the actual bay door. The air just gets thicker and heavier and hotter as you move back here. It's been absolutely miserable during the summer times. Material wise, I'm going with a 2-inch pink rigid foam. This has an R value of 10, which is a bit better than some of the thinner stuff or the foil backed stuff. And then I went with OSB to cap this ceiling with no insulation, but I will talk about that in just a little bit. Now, if you guys are going to do something like this, I highly recommend you measure each one of these panels. I always assumed that all these panels were the same, but they're not. In fact, for me personally, the top row is all narrow, and then each column is a little bit different. The two in the middle are roughly the same. The ones at the end are definitely different than the ones in the middle, but they're also different than each other. So what I recommend is actually measuring each one and writing them down in sort of a mapped off area. What I did is I went with, this is column A, this is column B, and then I went with each row was numbered. So you have A1, A2, A3, and A4. And then once you're done cutting it, you can actually label those the same as you did on the paper, and so you won't lose track of what part goes where. Now, foam can be cut on a table saw just like any other material in your shop. What I did is experiment with saw blades because I have a lot of new saw blades here in the shop now and I wanted to see what would be better. I honestly thought that a rip blade would be better because it has less teeth. Maybe it wouldn't have such high heat buildup. But actually what worked better is these 42 and 60 tooth blades. They're a flat top tooth grind and an alternating top bevel design both. And they worked great. And actually the 60 tooth I used for the OSB as well. So I can highly recommend either one of those blades. The rip blades actually built up a lot of heat and left some of the foam residue on the blades, which I was really surprised to find out. Now for me, once I had the foam cut, I went to the OSB because I had to have the garage door shut anyways, but you can see how cramped it is in my shop now. I have all this stuff everywhere. But this is also why I got the 36-inch table, the extended table on the new saw, is for instances just like this. The gap in my ceiling is actually 5 feet. When you take an 8-foot panel, of course, you take 5 feet off of that, you have 3 feet left over, which meant I could cut all of these in one pass at the table saw in full sheets and just break them down, which I really liked. Installing them was a little more awkward and cumbersome than I would have liked. I really do recommend, if you guys are in a situation like this yourselves, that you get somebody to help you. I'm more stubborn and not that smart, so I just did this on my own, with the exception of my wife handing me some screws here and there as she was coming in and out of the shop. And for those of you that are gonna ask right now, yes, there's a reason why I used screws. So I didn't use insulation in the ceiling, and it was to keep the cost factor down. I mean, as is, this already cost me about $350, which to some of you might not be much, to some of you it might be a lot. I was just trying to keep the cost down overall. And with it being screwed into the ceiling, there's 5 panels. I can take the second and fourth panel down and get access to all the other panels and tuck insulation up there at a later date if I feel it's actually necessary. And then I can put insulation on the second and fourth panel and push them back up into the ceiling and screw them all back in, and they're already fit and they're already good to go. Had I nailed them, it would have been a lot more difficult. I would have had to figure something else out. I didn't want to have to go down that route. So there is a reason why I used screws. Now that the ceiling is closed up and the door has the foam in it, I could move on to the trim to the outside. And the easiest way I found to do this was just to use a square and a knife and score a square line there and then cut the trim with that same knife. So I kind of did it all in one motion. And then honestly, to cut it, the quickest, easiest thing I had available to me right that second, with the shop being such a mess, was my dovetail saw. I was afraid to use it because I didn't want to damage it, but it was no problem at all. Cut through it just fine. I really recommend presetting your nails if you do something like this, especially if you're on your own, because you're gonna have to try and balance, reaching up and tucking that trim up into the corners or whatever it is, and then you're gonna have to hammer and you're gonna have to hold a nail and you're gonna have to do all this stuff. If you preset the nails first, the job will be much, much easier. And then for the corners, I didn't do anything fancy with miters and everything. I just shoved it right up into the corner there and butted it up into the other one. And I've had this door up and down a few times now, and there's no problems with the little rubber weather strip part whatsoever. It's actually goes right back in line where it's supposed to go. Now, as far as the AC unit itself goes, I will put a picture of it on the screen here so you guys can see, because I can't remember the model number exactly. But this is the kind that has the vent that goes out to a wall or to a window or wherever it is that you're gonna mount it. Now, I have the sash kit for this thing, but I don't want to use it in my window. In fact, I like my window to be closed, not just the window itself, but the blinds that I have up here as well. I never have them open. I don't want somebody coming by and seeing what's going on in the shop. And also in my particular situation, with the one window I have to vent, the AC would be in a really awkward spot. It would always be in the way, and I would probably just figure out how to not have it in here at all with it vented to the windows. Now, I have a vent in the wall of my garage already, and so that's where I chose to vent it. And venting it was super easy. I just had to trace the vent pipe onto what I'm going to use as sort of a bracket to mount to the wall, screw all that together, and then screw it to the wall, and now that thing just vents right outside, and it works actually really well. The unit itself has a few different modes. It has a AC mode, it has a dehumidifier, and it has just a regular fan mode, which I've been running it the last couple of days, and I think it works great. In fact, the last 2 days I had it out here just running all day just to see how much torture I could put it through. Now, I know some of you are gonna ask, what's going on with the foam? Am I gonna leave it pink? I was originally going to paint it white, and I'm still going to. I was gonna paint it white before I released this video. The problem is, with the weather system that we've had lately, it is just too hot to paint. Not because of my discomfort, just it's too hot for paint. And so I'm gonna have to wait. These panels are actually not in and secure all the way. So when it comes time to paint and it cools down outside a little bit, I will take them out one at a time. Again, they're labeled on the other side, so I know where they go. I can take them outside a couple at a time. I'm just gonna spray them white, and then that'll give me a much cleaner appearance on this door. And for me, especially, because it'll reflect the light a little bit, so it'll give me some more shop light, and because I'm on camera all the time, it's just gonna be helpful and cleaner and more pleasant all the way around. Now, when I do go to mount them, I'm actually gonna use a double-sided mounting tape. This is going to allow everything to expand and contract and play nice together. I have a feeling if I use some sort of a glue, one, I'm gonna end up with a permanent bond. Maybe I change my mind and I wanna do something else down the road and I wanna take these panels out, or when I move in a couple years, maybe the new owners wanna take these panels out, or whatever might happen. I would like something that's not so permanent, but also glue, once it dries, is not going to be able to expand and contract at the same rate that this foam mounting tape does. And so that's gonna make it so that it, say, sticks to the garage door, but then starts to eat away at the foam, releasing its bond over time, and then randomly you have panels falling out when you open up the garage door, but you wouldn't know it, of course, until it happens. So that's kind of a pain in the butt. Now, like I say, I think the unit works great. I'm actually really happy to have it. As some of you guys know, New Air sent that out to us back in the spring, and it was just too early to talk about air conditioning, so we postponed it, ironically, until the hottest week of the year here. An honorable mention goes to a evaporative cooler, also known as a swamp cooler, that they sent out to us recently as well. Now, the unit itself works great. It turns on, all the functions work, it holds a ton of water. The fan alone is just, I mean, it really puts out a ton of air. I just don't know how to use a swamp cooler. So I've had this thing in the shop for the last, say, 2 weeks. I've had it plugged in, I've used it, it operates fine. It's the first swamp cooler I've ever had. So if you guys know how to use a swamp cooler, obviously better than I do, leave a comment. That'll help me and others learn how to do that. Both those items and anything else on New Air's website can be found on their website, obviously, but for 10% off. So you guys use Inspire 10 at checkout. If you choose to, get yourself a portable air conditioner or anything else, 10% off, enter Inspire 10. And so that's always good to have. And that's always the thing that's running all the time. I think that's it for me. If you guys have questions, if I kind of skipped over something, as always, leave a comment down below and I'll try and keep an eye out on that stuff. Other than that, thank you so much for watching this video. As always, we'll see you guys in the next one.